Sa pagsisimula ng taong 2020, sinalubong na agad ang ating tibay ng pagsubok. Hindi pa man natatapos ang unang buwan ng taon, sinundan na ito ng isa pang hamon sa sistema ng edukasyon. Gayunpaman, ang Department of Education kasama ng ilang organisasyon ay walang tigil na nagsagawa ng mga paraan upang agarang makapagbigay solusyon sa mga ito. Sa dalang hamon ng hindi inaasahang pandemya sa buong mundo, maraming naging tanong kung paano na ang magiging kinabukasan ng edukasyon. Ngunit patuloy na isinulong ng kagawaran at pinag-alam ang kagustuhan na matuto ng ating mga mag-aaral sa gitna ng pandemya. Bilang tugon, narito ang ating mga naging aksyon upang ligtas na makapagpatuloy ang edukasyon. Bahagi rin ng matagumpay na implementasyon ng learning continuity ang mga lokal na pamahalaan. Para sa taong ito, matagumpay na nasimula ng mga klase sa kabila ng ilang agam-agam.
Today, October 5, 2020, we open our schools. Today, we claim victory over the destroyer, COVID-19.
At patuloy na pinatutunayan na walang sakuna o pandemya ang makapipigil para makapag-atid ng dekalidad na edukasyon sa mga Pilipinong mag-aaral. Marami mang pagbabago sa sistema ng ating edukasyon, walang pagbabago sa dedikasyon ng kagawaran. Kabi-kabilang hamon man ang harapin, anumang unos ang dumating, mananatiling matatag ang Department of Education para matiyak ang pagkatuto ngayon at ng mga susunod pang henerasyon.
Welcome to Straight Talk, where we discuss the issues of the day with the headliners themselves. Today on the line, we have DepEd Secretary Leonor Briones to discuss the latest on the distance learning. So
partner, in our earlier conversation with the secretary, she touched on a lot of interesting tidbits with explanations, and particularly the DepEd's initiatives towards the blended learning modality for the students and their future plans for the educators, particularly now that the government has started its vaccine rollout, and
Mm-hmm.
their Secretary Briones is very optimistic that they will benefit from the
Yeah.
vaccine rollout real soon para nga maumpisahan na yung pinopropose sila na at least limited
Face-to-face.
face-to-face learning sa
Yeah.
mga estudyante kasi nga marami na rin sa ating students nakakaramdam ng
Burnout.
quarantine burnout and yung mga anxieties, and sabi nga niya maraming estudyante yung nag-express ng desire to reconnect again with their peers
Oo.
on the personal, kumbaga, na not just through the screen. And sana eventually mapayagan na sila ng LGUs and ng IITF to do this.
Kasi if you really come to think about it, di ba? I mean, social interaction is integral part of learning.
And because we should focus not just on the intelligence quotient of the students, but also on their EQ. And it's very important. Not just for the students, but even for the teachers, because our teachers, alam naman natin yan, they do a lot. And oftentimes they do more than what is asked of them, and kailangan din nila niya. They need the psychosocial intervention nga na napag-usapan din natin with Secretary Briones.
Yeah. Pero with the inoculation program, how high nga the teachers in the
Ang
inoculation
sabi ni
priority?
Secretary Briones are they're in the second year of the priority of the government, pero parang sabi ba parang to reconsider or something. So, malalaman natin yan pag napanood na natin yung buong episode natin with Secretary Briones, which we will give you after the short break.
Araneta City, home to the country's first indoor shopping mall, the world's original Thrilla, and the first ever Bini Bini pageant. Now a place for your first win, your first catch, your first home, your first big break, your first date, and even your first love. Araneta City, the city of firsts.
Popular, and we found an audience. We found a friend in Daily Tribune, which faithfully published our positions on issues related, for example, to the budget.
Ready? 3, 2, 1, and action.
We are 1 year along the Department of Education's distance learning program. What measurable gains has the sector seen thus far? How has the department closed in the pre-existing COVID gaps in education through it all? To show that it is a public good rather than a private consumable, we are joined live by DepEd Secretary Leonor Briones to discuss this, as well as our imminent return to face-to-face instruction as pressures grow from stakeholders and with the arrival of the vaccine. This is Straight Talk. My name is Vernon Velasco.
And I'm Tina Maralik.
Good morning. Hello, ma'am.
Hi,
Yeah.
Ma'am Liling.
Hello,
Kamusta po
I'm
kayo?
glad to be back with the Tribune. I have a long history of cordial working relationship with Tribune, which goes all the way back to the time when I was chair of Social Watch Philippines, and also as far back as Freedom from Debt Coalition. During those times, social development issues were not very popular, and we found an audience. We found a friend in Daily Tribune, which faithfully published our positions on issues related, for example, to the budget, where people are not necessarily interested in the budget. It's too exotic, it's too boring. And on the debt, matters of debt, and also social development like poverty, education, etc. And Tribune has been very faithful in publishing our positions on the issues as of that time. And I'm very grateful, and I have not forgotten what Tribune has contributed to the discourse on social development, as well as, of course, on economic issues as well. So thank you very much for this privilege. Thank you.
And thank you so much po, ma'am, for taking the time out to be with us today.
Yeah.
Kasi alam ko, it's
Yes.
going to be a very interesting discussion with you po. Yeah, so partner, you want to fire away the first question?
Yeah, sure. Ma'am, let's get to the issue po. How does DepEd quantify po the success of the blended learning program? Has everybody really been able to adapt to it po?
Well, the impression is that we have been 1 year in the blended learning program. That is not completely accurate. If you will recall, we started classes on October 5, and that is, let me see, November, maybe 4 months ago. I think, and I believe, being a scholar, that it might be too early already to quantify the success of the blended learning program. But what I can say is that immediately after the lockdown, which was announced in March by the government, we formulated the policy of continuing education, continuing the learning process, and finally we opened classes in October. So it might be too early at this time to do any quantitative studies. What we can share with you, of course, are the numbers on enrollment and the curriculum content. We reduced, of course, the required knowledge, competencies that we usually require sa regular curriculum, and all the activities that we engaged in. Also, it might be helpful information to be aware that we are supported by Congress, because immediately after the lockdown, several bills were filed in Congress, among them by Congressman Escudero, who is an expert in education, already authorizing the use of the blended learning approach for education. So now, what blended education is all about? What is blended learning all about? And we know, of course, from the word blender that it is a mix of various approaches to education. And this is not a new thing. We don't claim glory, or we don't claim that we invented blended learning, because it has been around since maybe the 1940s. It's a very simple thing. You blend different approaches to teaching, to the learning process. But the blending depends on the context of the school. It depends on the situation. And blended learning usually includes, of course, face-to-face learning, where teachers and pupils face each other, And then you have the alternatives, which we had to rely on to strengthen and to develop, because face-to-face was until now is not allowed by the government in the light of the pandemic. Face-to-face can be done through ICT. We have what we call the DepEd Commons, which is an ICT approach, where all the lessons, everything, lessons, tests, guides to students are in electronic format, and which is very popular. So we have, I think, already over 10 million users of the DepEd Commons, and every day more and more students and teachers are using it. So you have the electronic approach, and then since it is not available, even we ourselves suffer every so often the deficiencies of our ICT system, and so we also turn to television. Yes. Because many local governments have their own television stations, and you know that for a fact, especially the big local governments. And then if TV does not work, so we have to teach our teachers to teach in front of a TV camera. And then kung hindi pwede the TV, of course you have radio, and radio is very, very popular. The president likes it very, very much, and it's very useful for far off places. And if still radio does not work, TV does not work, ICT does not work, then you have the use also of the printed modules, where the materials are printed and distributed among the students. So the blending, the combination, the recipe for each of these learning modalities depends on the context of the schools. There are those which respond very quickly and very easily to ICT. There are those who have television stations. Many municipalities are putting up their own radio stations, and many teachers and learners still look to printed modules for their learning activities. So pag blend niyan, it is contextualized. Kaya we have always repeated what Senator Amy also echoes, and she has always been saying that there is no one fixed design or no one fixed model for blended learning. It is determined by the situation in the school, kung what works and what does not work. A major feature, of course, is the fact that there is no face-to-face, because generally blended learning has face-to-face sessions, whether it is every day, whether it is 1 hour, pero may face-to-face talaga. Our version of the blended learning does not include face-to-face, because at this time the president is very worried about protecting our children. So that's it. October pa ito. When we open classes, it's only about several months. So alangan to make quantitative analysis. But we are doing this continually on a weekly basis, and we are adjusting all the time. Kasi we get reports from the different schools, from teachers, from learners, and also from parents themselves. So ganon.
So, Ma'am Liling, with everything that you've mentioned, the different kinds of modalities that the DepEd has employed for this school year, are there other interventions that you have in the pipeline to help students, especially during this pandemic po?
When we opened classes, that was last October, although enrollment started June, kasi the official start of enrollment is June, we asked the learners and the parents what approach they would prefer. And a good number of them, because they're used to printed modules, opted for printed modules. So right now, we are relying on printed modules, but we look forward to the time when we will reduce our dependency on printed modules and move on to the other approaches. And this is because it's good that we are now very concerned about the environment. The use of printed modules is the most expensive of the various approaches, kasi you use up a lot of paper, you have to print them and ship the materials, etc. And it's not only very expensive, but it is very expensive on the environment. If you use a lot of paper, then you also cut down a lot of trees. And we are seeing the consequences of continuous cutting down of our forests to produce paper for not only for education, but for the various paper needs of society. Kaya we want to, as much as possible, to reduce our dependency on printed materials. Yun ang pinakamahal. Like during the last round of typhoons that we had, we lost about 1.6 billion pesos worth of modules in the areas lang where the storms and the floods and the earthquakes were happening, and we cannot be doing that all the time at the expense also of taxpayers' money. So that is how it is now, and we like to think that we are giving information and fair warning to the public that the direction really is for paperless technologies, like platforms, electronic platforms like television, like radio and other means of teaching, compared to the use of paper and the cutting down of trees. Yeah.
Ma'am, we were actually had news lately po about the students being demoralized and encouraged to drop out. I mean, how do you expect to bring back the students?
Immediately after Christmas vacation, you have to bear in mind, Vernon, that when we closed school in March, the children, we didn't have classes at all. 6 months the children were not in school. Imagine yourself, you are a working person, 6 months not working at all. Or the teachers, 6 months not teaching at all, but preparing to teach. So the transition from 6 months of not being in school to a new, not really new, but a different approach to learning, to which you have to adjust. That takes a great deal of adjustment on the part of the child and on the part of the teacher. So in sinasabing demoralization and dropout, we checked with all the regions. We have noticed, and even during my time, and that was very, very long ago, if you have a 2-week Christmas vacation, nakakatamad bumuelo, bumalik.
Yeah.
What happened is that our children had 6 months of no classes, 2 weeks of semestral break, and then 2 weeks of Christmas vacation. And each time they go off and rest and have their holidays, then they have to transition again. They have to make vuelo again. They have to regain the momentum again. And we notice that especially after the Christmas holidays, children do not necessarily go back on exactly the same day. Kasi lubos-lubusin na lang nila yung remaining days because this is after the Three Kings holiday. Itong 6 months. And so what we think is demoralization is really a break in the momentum. Kasi you have to pick up and recharge again. It's like setting a machine into motion, setting it moving, making a vehicle move again after stopping it for 6 months. And then 2 weeks you stop, and then another 2 weeks you stop, and then with Holy Week coming you will also stop. So we will have to be regaining that momentum all the time. And we some of us interpret that as loss of, as discouragement, as demoralization. It's not necessarily so, because you have checked the enrollment period, the enrollment numbers, to verify the truth of these allegations. Hindi naman, they come back. They come back after 1 or 2 or 3 days of extensions. I don't know if you did that when you were on Christmas break or when you were on summer break. You wait for the very, very, very last day before you finally enroll. Tapos mag-i-extend pa. Oh. And then once you are there, it's so difficult to adjust to the routine of being in school, because this is the longest. As I said, you two, Tina and Vernon, you are working people, and you are used to working. Try not working for 6 months.
It's hard to get back in the rhythm.
Then the momentum is really lost. But you cannot say it's demoralization. You cannot say it's whatever you imagine it is, because the momentum is always broken. By the time na buboylo ka na, bakasyon na naman. Buboylo ka, babakasyon na naman. Like now, where our kids might be looking forward to Holy Week. And then after Holy Week, they will be looking forward to summer vacation. After summer vacation, enroll ng sandali, klase ng sandali, semestral break. Then after the semestral break in November, then you have Christmas break, which is 2 weeks. And then for those who go to the provinces, I don't know if people still go back to the provinces. It takes time for them to get the energy to go back to the routine of schooling, especially if the approach is different from what you are used to. So maybe we have to be careful with the information and the interpretation which is presented to the public.
So, Ma'am Lily,
Judging from our own experience, from your own experience as well, as students and as working people.
So, Ma'am Lily, relatedly po, syempre, ang tagal nung naging layoff. Sabi nyo nga po, 6 months hindi nag-aral yung mga bata. And the teacher, 6 months na hindi nagturo. Of course,
Yes.
for sure po, they experience quarantine burnout din po.
Actually.
Masasabi po ninyo natin yan.
Yes.
Does the DepEd conduct psychosocial interventions po, both for the teachers and the students, para nga po sabi natin,
Yes.
to get them in the right mindset po?
Right. Tama, Katina. Actually, we have been warning. Because we have been warning on the psychosocial effects of children's prolonged staying at home. Because of course it has an impact on their home life. The relationship with their parents are also trying to get back to work. We think, we believe, and of course there is also some basis for that there would be psychosocial problems while in school, but there are also psychosocial problems while a child is has prolonged stay at home, because the parents have to oversee them, and now some information is coming out on quite serious psychosocial problems for children who stay at home, and that's why I'm not surprised when I get information from children that they would want to be taught by teachers, because pag they stay at home, it's the parents who have to take over, to supervise, and then the parents are supervising the home, the economics of staying alive, and the chores and many distractions. I have read the responses of students to at home teaching, and they recognize and admit these difficulties. Maraming distractions, because when you are at home, you can do a lot of things. I'm sure you also have undergone this in your work, what they describe as yung mga skeleton force.
Yes.
No, you stay at home, you work at home, but the degree of work and output that you are able to produce might be different from what you are able to do when you are in a proper office,
Yes.
because there are always many other tempting works, tempting tasks to do also at home. Yun ang sinasabi ng mga bata na nakuha namin sa feedback galing sa kanila. Oo.
Ma'am, well, we are in the
Kaya mas generally, by the way, Vernon, generally, ang mga, yung nag-survey kami na over 1 billion ang aming respondents and of teachers, of learners, and of parents. Generally, ang mga bata, they prefer to be in school.
Yes. Apo. Ma'am, with that being,
Yun, because of the reasons I stated. Yeah.
Ma'am, while we're in the subject po of, I mean, the students want to be in the face-to-face classes setup, but I mean, many are irked by the DepEd study po to cut short po the vacation po of students into 2 weeks po.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You have 6 months of vacation, and then you have 2 weeks of semestral vacation. You have 2 weeks of Christmas vacation, and then you have the long summer vacation. And each time, you will have to build up the momentum again. So let me share with you what is happening in the other countries. Of course, it has been shown that we are perhaps the only country in Southeast Asia which has not yet gone into face-to-face. Maski limited, kasi yung iba naman talaga, hindi naman full face-to-face ang ginagawa ng ibang bansa. You know, Vernon, one country which is always at the top now of all the international assessment, the regional assessment, palagi yung number 1 talaga. They started having classes in June. And bear in mind, Vernon, we started in October. And then we are so tired, we are so stressed, we have to rest. In the meantime, the schools which opened in Asia in June, mayroong July. Sana kasabay natin, I was proposing August, kasabay natin ang isang country na August magbukas. But we ended up opening in October. Tapos na sila sa kanilang semester. They're already moving up ahead by 1 academic year. And you can imagine that there is a degree of loss there. There is a degree of loss of competitiveness. Sabihin natin, hayaan mo sila, we will take our time, we'll play muna, mag-rest muna kami. But if you are preparing a child or a learner for the world of work, for the world of being in a university, because in other countries they're already seeking admission to universities, they're already seeking work. Sa atin, we are still in the second or the third term of our academic year at this time. Kasi huli nga tayo nag-umpisa. And still we are very tired. Still we are very stressed. And we understand that. We understand where the stress is coming from. But we also have to recognize the fact that we are preparing the children, our learners, for a very competitive world, for a very competitive region. And as I said, in this country now, it started in June. Yung kanilang senior high are already busy applying for universities, getting examinations, while we are still in the second or the third quarter, and we are very tired, and we are very stressed, and we are seeking relief, and we understand that, and we go as far as we can to accommodate the expectations and the demands of our students, but at the same time, they have to be aware of the kind of world that they will be entering when they finish their studies. Diba? Oo. Ayan, nagnanad si Tina. Siguro, yung...
Isa po ako sa mga estudyante dati.
Hindi ba, na-experience nyo ba yan na after graduating, after all the hard work and the exams and all that, di nagtrabaho na kayo?
Yeah.
And then, yung nagtrabaho na kayo, ba,
Yeah.
you have never heard of those things that are expected of you, and then sabihin ng boss mo, what are you doing when you're in school? Bakit hindi mo ito alam? So, ang sagot natin, kasi absent ako noon. Kasi I was resting noon. Kasi napagod ako noon. And of course, the real world is not necessarily like lolas who love the children, who always indulge what the children want, or like parents. The world of work is a different matter altogether, and you yourselves know that because you are already in the world of work.
Yes po.
Diba? Sasabihin niya, bakit hindi tinuro ito sa amin noon? Hindi ko ito alam. Siguro absent ka noon.
Kaya late.
O yan. Or baka resting ka noon, Vernon. Sige. Ano pa bang ibang mga ano?
Yeah, ma'am. In the meantime, we're going to take a pause for a few reminders.
Araneta City, home to the country's first indoor shopping mall, the world's original Thrilla, and the first ever Bini Bini pageant. Now a place for your first win, your first catch, your first home, your first big break, your first date, and even your first love. Araneta City, the city of firsts.
Fiber is the free and secure way to connect with friends and family, anywhere. Send messages and make phone and video calls for free. Download Viber now.
You're still here with us on Straight Talk with DepEd Secretary Leonor Briones. So, partner, I just want to ask Ma'am Liling, Ma'am, how do you think with everything that's going on, obviously our battle with the pandemic is far from over, at least so it seems. So, sa tingin niyo po, how much longer can the education sector continue with blended learning, considering hindi lang naman po iisa o dalawa yung mga challenges na hinaharap natin, nararanasan natin?
There is no choice actually. Blended learning will continue whether there is a pandemic or not. Kasi kung wala ng pandemic, then the face-to-face portion will already be reintegrated back to blended learning. Blended learning has always been there, except that ang focus natin is on face-to-face. Ngayon, this time, walang face-to-face, kaya ang attention natin nag-shift na to the non-face-to-face approaches. Pero kung wala na yung pandemic, all of the above will already be there. All the ingredients of effective education and effective teaching will already be part of, mailagay na ninyo sa blender. And it is, as I said, contextualized. Mayroong ibang ready na, mayroong iba naman na kailangang they still have to be capacitated, and we have to think of very creative ways of reaching to the learners. Oo.
Ma'am,
It will be there. It will be there. Pandemic or no pandemic, blended learning. 1940s pa kasi yung blended eh. Yung nga lang, talagang doon tayo nakatutok sa face-to-face. Dahil yun ang nakasanayan natin. At saka doon yung marami tayong teachers and so on.
Yes po.
Oo. Yan, Vernon. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Yes. Ma'am, President Duterte has always deferred po the DepEd's plea to go back to the face-to-face po.
Face-to-face, yes.
The vaccines po have arrived yesterday
The first
po.
batch.
The first batch po. What does it mean for DepEd? I mean,
we are waiting for the instructions of the president kasi when we proposed pilot naman ang pinopose namin. We already made an initial identification what schools would probably and in what regions, bawat regions ang pwedeng mag-pilot, and out of 61,000 schools naka-identify kami ng more than 1,900, no, na ang condition niyan una papayag ang local government. Hindi kami magbubukas ng pilot face to face kung hindi papayag ang local government. Pangalawa, kailangan may written permission from the parents because among the various constituencies that whom we are dealing with, ang parents ang malaking concern about the safety of their children. They need assurance. So, kailangan din na papayag sila. Kung ayaw nilang pasalihin ang anak nila, walang pilitan. Oo. Pangatlo, ang aming facilities have to be ready for face-to-face. Kasi alam mo, may space requirements yan eh. Yung social distancing. Kailangan din na marami kang tubig, kailangan may supply ng medicine, kailangan malapit ka sa isang health facility and so on. So yung aming sariling facilities kailangan appropriate for face to face, kasi yung dating face to face natin hindi na pwede na nagsisiksikan 80, 70, 60 ka pupils in one room. Hindi na yan pwede. Ipapa-aresto tayo ng IATF niyan. The other consideration is napansin namin sa aming mga pag-aaral na ang mga bata do not necessarily pick up the coronavirus in school.
yes.
They can pick it up sa transportation facilities. So kailangan we have to have a commitment on the part of mga nagpo-provide ng transport, mga tricycle, mga school buses na malinis yung nila, may distancing sa loob, etc. They may not pick up the virus in school, but they might get it in the school bus or on the tricycle. Tapos yung importante ng role ng home, kaya gusto natin na papayag ang home dahil they will also see to it na yung home environment nila. Kasi may mga cases na nakikita natin na talagang sa home naman na kuha ng mga bata, kung mayroon man. Kasi very minimal lang naman ang children na natamaan ng coronavirus sa ating system at this time. Oo, so ayun. Yun ang ating mga conditions. And on that basis, doon tayo pipili ng mga gagawin nating pilot places. Pag ayaw ni local government, and alam niyo naman, local governments have been announcing their positions. Kung ayaw ng parents, and parents are very articulate, very protective of their children. At saka kung yung transport naman, hindi sila nagsusunod ng mga protocols natin, then hindi natin itutuloy yung mga pilot studies na yan. Pero ang very interesting thing, Tina and Vernon, yung mga learners, more than 50% of them, over 1 million yung aming na mga respondents. At saka I talked with about 382 heads of student councils, both junior and senior. Gusto nila na kailangan may element of face-to-face. Sila ang mas malaking porsyento talagang gusto ng face-to-face. And tumama ako sa aking even before we conducted the consultations and the studies, sabi ko, I believe that the learners sila ang maghihingi nito. The parents ang medyo reluctant sila. They have to be assured. The teachers ay gusto nila, everything has to be in place. Local governments may sarili silang concern. But the children, gusto nila maski isang oras lang. Masilip nila yung classmate nila o yung playmate nila o yung teacher nila. And we see children, yung araw dadaan-daan doon sa school, sisilip-silip doon sa pader, tinitingnan yung school. Parang na-miss nila talaga. Yung mga bata ang So,
sabi niyo nga po,
yun ang decision point kung ikaw Gobernon Presidente o ikaw Tina ang Secretary of Education. Sino ang pagbigyan mo?
I would give it to the...
Sino ang mabigat?
Diba? Siguro,
Sino ang object ng ng trabaho mo, ang concern mo? Yun ang question na gusto naming sagutin. And but of course, we comply with the President's instructions.
Yes.
but of course, ma'am, pag natuloy itong face-to-face ulit na learning ng mga estudyante, katulad nga po na nabanggit nyo kanina, it would entail added facilities. Kasi nga po, hindi na pwede yung nakasanayan natin na siksikan sa classroom, na halos nagkakapalitan na ng mukha minsan sa ibang instances. So, ma'am, how is the DepEd addressing the shortage of classrooms nationwide, lalo na
Public schools.
Yeah, public schools.
Oo. Tama yung tanong ninyo. Every year, libo-libong classrooms ang binibuild natin. Ang nagbibuild ng ating mga classrooms ay ang DPWH. Kasi yung funding niyan, usually in 1 year, it can reach more than 300 billion. Diretso yan sa DPWH. Sila ang nagmamanage, sila ang nagbe-bid off, etc. Although we agree on the design. Ako naman, ang punto ko, tingnan natin yung design ng ating mga classrooms. Kung minsan may iba't ibang opinion dito, ang iba sabi, sige, build na tayo ng build. Bakit ganito lang ang na-build ng DPWH? Ang objective ninyo, how many ang i-build ninyo? Sinasabi ko, tingnan muna natin yung design kung responsive pa ba. Halimbawa, mag-build ka ng eskwelahan sa tabi ng ilog, sa tabi ng pampang, ng Bisayan yan, on a cliff, overlooking the sea. The view is very nice, but also the flood is very nice. No, very kind. And yung mga bagay, we have to look at the design of our buildings. Obra pa ba yung current designs natin? Yung size ng ating classrooms, obra pa ba? At saka, kailangan ba talaga natin na may classroom? Kung halimbawa you go into virtual learning. So yun, for me, you go to design and we have to debate on those issues. Although the practice now is every year every year on a regular basis, we always build new classrooms. Ang point ko, before we build the new classrooms, we look at the design.
Yes.
Kasi pagdaan ng isang ihip ng hangin, pagdaan ng isang bagyo, pagdaan ng isang lindol, kung babagsak lang yung building na ginawa natin, sayang naman ang tax na binabayad ni Tina at ni Vernon. Kasi alam po, automatically deducted yan sa ninyo.
Yeah.
Sa income tax ninyo. O dapat maningil naman kayo kung saan napunta.
Tama.
Okay.
Ma'am, balik tayo sa sa bakuna tsaka sa balik face-to-face. Sabi niyo nga po sa mga interviews ninyo. So, yeah, how high po are our educators in the government's priority list po in the inoculation program?
Right now, sabi nila baka i-adjust yun. Right now, nasa second group ang teachers kasi ang inuuna ang frontliners, the health workers, at saka yung mga elderly na pinaka-vulnerable, at saka ang focus is on the low-income groups, yung mababa na income. Yun ang first nila. Ang education kumbaga nasa second batch, although sabi ni Secretary Galvez na i-reconsider nila yon kasi sabi ko hindi naman makagalaw ang education sector kung walang assurance ng vaccine. Ang mga teachers are reluctant and the parents of the children are also reluctant. So nasa letter B kami. Oo. Una yung mga frontliners, which we understand, and the elderly na may vulnerabilities at saka low income. Yun ang inuuna kasi libre kasi yung vaccine. Oo. Debate din at what age Vernon and Tina i-vaccinate ang isang bata. Right now, ang thinking maybe junior high at saka senior high. Pero yung mga batang-bata ay hindi pa klaro yung opinion dyan sa Department of Health kung anong age natin ipababa yung pag-vaccinate ng mga bata. Right now, hindi sila kasali. It would be the junior high school and senior high school kids ang pwedeng ma-vaccinate at this time.
So, ma'am, over the weekend, President Duterte said since with the rollout of the vaccination program against COVID-19, he is mulling putting the whole country under modified general community quarantine, which means mas luluwag na po yung protocols. So, sa tingin niyo po ba, are you optimistic na with this, kung matutuloy po ito, plus yung planong inoculation po sa ating mga teachers and sa mass population eventually, do you think this will sway yung parents na finally payagan na siguro yung mga anak nila na to resume at least the limited face-to-face learning po?
We are hopeful no na kasi naman ang pangako niya during the last cabinet meeting, sabi niya steady lang kayo diyan, hintay lang kayo diyan, pag nandiyan na yung vaccine papayag na siya kasi at least may assurance ng safety ang mga bata. Although kami, ang namin, hindi naman kami nagsasabi na automatically lahat na bata mag face-to-face. Ang suggestion lang namin na subukan namin, i-pilot muna namin how it will work para naman safe na safe talaga ang mga bata. At saka maraming mga bansa na nag-o-offer ng sarili nilang experiences kagaya ng Denmark, kagaya ng iba't ibang mga bansa sa Europa at saka sa Amerika at saka sa Southeast Asia na kung paano nila ginawa itong manage nitong what we fear is the danger to our children. Although right now talagang hindi naman ganun kataas ang natin sa children natin.
Ma'am, balik tayo sa mga modules, no? The distance learning program has afforded our students to be safe from the dangers of social interaction po. But there are still some instances that, pag magsasoli sila ng mga modules, kukuha, dahil siguro sa excitement, nagyayakapan sila, nagbebeso-beso, binibisita yung mga teachers after meetings. Is there a clear-cut guideline in the conduct of getting and returning the modules po?
Actually, the protocols are very clear. talagang maliwanag naman yung protocol. Halimbawa, sabihin natin na may kagaya nung nangyari sa Laguna na may mga bata na hindi naman sila enrolled sa DepEd pero nag-drown sila. Siyempre, pinagbintangan automatically ang DepEd. Mayroon tayong protocol na pag mayroong baha, mayroong natural disaster, tigil yung mga distribution ng module because high risk naman, that's very risky, no? So mayroon tayong mga instructions na dapat sundin ng mga teachers natin kung sila ang nag-distribute o yung mga volunteers na nagdi-distribute na galing sa local government units. At saka bago ilabas yung mga mga modules na yan, they have to be thoroughly sanitized. Talagang sinasanitize yan. Binabantayan ng husto na hindi magkaroon sila ng infection, and probably it helps explain kung bakit mababa ang level. Hinahanap ko nga yung number ng si Bianca, yung mga statistics on hindi yung natamaan ng COVID ng mga bata. Oo. Actually, the statistics on children affected by COVID is very, very, very low and negligible practically compared to the other sectors of society. Una, hindi naman sila pumapasok. Kung nangyari naman, they pick it up sometimes sa bahay nila o sa transport na pick up, pero not necessarily in schools kasi sa schools strict talaga na may mga protocols yan for which we impose penalties, no? Halimbawa sa up to February 25, buong bansa na ito, ang ating confirmed cases natin ay 1,862 out of 26 million ka mga bata. Tapos 7 cadets. Pero itong 7 cadets, hindi ito nakuha sa school. Trinak natin ito. At saka 1,468 ang nag-recover. At saka out of 26 million, you only have 187 active cases. So mababa ang level i-compare mo sa ibang age groups. Kaya dinidebate namin ito kasi sinasabi namin halimbawa ang confirmed cases is only 0.06%, 0.006% of the total student population, the learner population.
Yeah.
Oo.
Ma'am, one of the issues...
Mabibilang mo lang talaga. Oo.
Ma'am,
Sa kamay.
Yes.
Oo.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
one of the issues po hounding distance learning very early on, especially in private schools, are obscene miscellaneous fees po that the students are obliged to pay even they are not able to utilize what they are paying for, say dental fees po. I mean, is there a directive from DepEd that prevents usurious school from this injustice po?
Hindi kasi ang una, I think I'm glad I have this opportunity. Not all those horrible, stupid, out of this world kind of modules are manufactured by DepEd. Of course, the conclusion is that we have such a low opinion of DepEd and its capacity that we think all the bad things that are happening in education are attributable to DepEd. Now, about the module, yung kaisa-isang bastos na module, within 2 hours na track namin, it was manufactured by hindi DepEd. I will not mention the school or even the province. And hindi DepEd, hindi public school. Ang sumulat noon ay 21-year-old so-called faculty na hindi naman niya yung field. We investigated quietly and that faculty member has been removed, and I suppose the school penalized the supervisor who was na nag-release ng ganyan. At saka tama ka, it's unfair and it's cruel to make the children and their parents pay for material which is hindi naman karapat-dapat. Isa lang yon. Pero you would think out of 800,000 modules which were produced by DepEd, you have one which is bastos and which was not made by DepEd, and DepEd is excoriated even in Senate hearings.
Ayan, ma'am.
Because you immediately conclude, gawa-gawa ito ng DepEd. So that's the first thing. Not all the so-called horrible, scandalous, bad grammar, etc., are made by DepEd. Because, you know, bad grammar is, well, you cannot say only DepEd people have bad grammar.
Yeah. Ma'am, it's one thing po.
Or bad thoughts.
Yeah.
No? So, isa pa, pangalawa, we have a system of reviewing. Mayroon kaming quality control. Pag hindi papasa ng quality control, ang isang module, binabalik yan. Wini-withdraw yan immediately. Pangatlo, Vernon Athena, mabuti na rin masabi ko sa inyo, we have this system which we call the error watch. Anyone who makakita sila ng mali, hindi kailangan tatakbo sila sa media and scream and screech and make mura sa DepEd. They just report to, marunong naman sila magtuldok-tuldok ng site. Sa error watch, itatrack yun. And usually within hours matatrack namin kung amin yun o hindi amin. Kung saan ang galing yan at kaninong kasalanan yan. Halimbawa, yung nangyari about yung discriminatory slur against a particular group of people in the Philippines, no? That was just a worksheet. Worksheet sa isang klase na nakita na winidraw ka agad. But somehow, may nakapulot, in-announce na ito ang pinagmodmod ng DepEd na ignorante. This DepEd which is full of discrimination, etc. Ang daming resolutions, ang daming calls for investigation, etc. Actually, na-withdraw na yon dahil nakita naman kaagad eh. And it is a worksheet. It's not for national use itong discriminatory. And besides, in this day and age, we have an idea. Even the average Filipino has an idea of how we look like, and we look alike as Filipinos. And kami, we have from different regions, and I can tell you the best looking people that we have in DepEd are from that region.
Yes, ma'am.
So to accuse us of ignorance also is double ignorance.
Yes.
Diba? Ay, huwag niyo ilagay yan. Baka kung ilagay ninyo yan, may magalit na. May mahiring-hiring ako dyan. Oo. Mamura-mura na naman ako dyan. But we don't, sa UN pa lang, bawal na bawal yan. Oo. And if you don't know how we as a region, like just by looking at you, I cannot tell whether you're Visayan with a very bad accent or whether you are from a region in the north with, looking like this or that. I cannot tell just by looking at you.
Yeah.
Kasi wala na yung typing natin, stereotyping, hindi naman allowed yan. And we penalize that.
At the end of the day, ma'am,
sa
we're all
amin.
Filipinos.
Yeah.
Diba?
They're all
Oo
Filipinos.
nga, nasa UN yan eh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ma'am, it's
Saka
been
sige. Sorry, ini-interrupt ko kayo.
Ma'am, it's been a
Para
pleasure
kasi
having you
kayong
today.
mga looks ninyo, mukha kayong mga student.
I think that is a compliment,
Ini-interrupt ni
ma'am.
teacher.
Ma'am, salamat po. Ma'am, before we let you go, final word po.
Uy, tapos na. You let me go already. Akala ko,
Para may
nangangalati lang
part 2,
tayo.
para may reason for us to invite
Yeah.
you again. Diba? Sayang, ma'am,
Oo.
kasi
Ay,
we're
mahirap
out of
akong
time,
ano,
So,
Yeah.
your message
kumbinsihin.
po.
Anyway. Sige.
Yes po. Final word, ma'am.
Your message po, ma'am.
Um, ang message ko, we have various images, various impressions about DepEd and the capacities of DepEd leadership, our teachers, our learners. And if we look closely, kung i-check natin ito, i-confirm, we will find out that they are not necessarily true or relevant anymore, because DepEd has gone a very, very long way. Secondly, we are all suffering from this pandemic. The challenges are horrific. The fact that DepEd, with its nearly 1 million teachers, 26 million learners, and how many millions staff, was able within a period of 6 months to ensure continuity in education. Kasi yung sa amin is talagang continuity of learning. You lose 6 months for a child, a 6-month loss in the learning process is already very expensive. A 12-year-old child will be 12-and-a-half-year-old child already in 6 months' time. And he is looking for different types of education already. Ang laki ng loss na isa-suffer. The losses of closure, deprivation of education are so much greater than what we fear that they are. And finally, if there are very ugly, vicious attacks against DepEd, it will be helpful if these figures are checked, the methodology for research are reviewed, and the basis for conclusions are also studied very carefully. All that we are asking for is balance. Balance in informing the public, balance in dealing with the parents and with the educators. Pero ang bottom line ng DepEd, more than any sector in society, because we serve all sectors of society, of course, are the learners. Kasi yun ang sinasabi sa Constitution, that we should provide every Filipino learner with quality education. And that is what we are aiming for. To strive for quality education at the time of pandemic, at the time of 6-month closures, at the time of exhaustion for our learners and for our teachers, I think that has to be recognized instead of being excoriated and of being criticized. We inherited a system which all of us know is not perfect, but we are expected to deliver perfection at a time of imperfection worsened by a pandemic. And I think that is something worth thinking about. The fact that we still have classes, the fact that we have more than 26 million learners in our schools, the fact that we have developed alternative learning modes, television, teachers are now teaching over the radio. We are developing other alternatives, for example, to the excessive use of paper and finances of government. The fact that we want to save the planet and prevent the floods and the earthquakes and the rains and the storm because we want more paper. I think that has to be recognized as well, even as we admit that we are not perfect. but the system we inherited also is not perfect. And we do our very best at this time, whether it is education, whether it is health, whether it is transportation or any other government service. Everybody is really doing his or her best, especially the citizens of this country. We are taking care of ourselves. Filipinos take care of each other, communities, businesses, media, and so on. And so, thank you very much for this privilege. I hope it will not result in me landing in another meme and a frantic search for my ugliest picture and my worst Visayan accent to be distributed, and also the most vicious 4-letter words, 5-letter words to describe an 80-year-old woman. And so I trust Tribune to.
Of course, we love you so much.
What shall I say? I trust Tribune to say what I said.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very well, Secretary Leonor Briones of the Department of Education. Salamat po.
Salamat po, ma'am. See you again next time.
See you again, ma'am.
Magsha-shopping na lang ako!
Hashtag 143SM. Call to deliver.
Hello, can I get the following? 1 pink chair, bed sheets, na pink yung sofa, tapos slide, size 8, pajamas na blue. Oh, don't forget my...
Hashtag 143SM. Call to deliver.
Wait lang, okay ba yan?
Anything at the SM store, ma'am.
Call to deliver. Call.
Kuya, pwede rin ba ako magpa-deliver sa ate ko sa Taguig, tapos sa friend ko sa Davao, tsaka sa... cancel ko sa Lipa? Okay ba yan?
Kahit saan po, pwede kami mag-deliver.
Call to deliver. Call. Hashtag 143SM. Call to deliver. Hashtag 143SM. Call to deliver. Call. Hashtag 143SM. Hashtag 143SM. Call to deliver.
Call na rin kayo.
Call to deliver.
Ang galing talaga ni Secretary Liling, no? Grabe.
Ah.
80-year-old and she's that eloquent.
Very sharp, eloquent, and very insightful. She really knows what she's talking about.
And I really like it when she said, we're expecting perfect things from imperfect people in such an imperfect time.
And being the secretary of the Department of Education, we understand where she's coming from. Of course, she's after the best interest, not just of the students, but also of the teachers. At the same time, trying to have that balance between the safety and health of everyone involved, and also yung sa learning ng mga tao, and also yung sa sources of income ng mga teacher. But yun nga, I always say this, partner, and you know this, yung diba, trust the process.
Yes.
Because our government naman will not make decisions which will harm the citizens, and kanya-kanyang priorities, kanya-kanyang turn to be among those priorities, especially with the vaccine rollout now, and hopefully once na-vaccinate na yung teachers and then mga estudyante, yung gusto natin, yung mga gusto nung sinasabi nga ni Secretary Liling na yung clamor ng maraming estudyante na face-to-face learning, although limited, mangyari na. Kasi nga, importante din na hindi lang IQ but also the EQ.
Kasi iba talaga, alam mo yun, everybody will actually go out of their way to railroad the process. Tinan mo nga yung mga modules na minanufacture ng 21-year-old faculty daw. I mean, di ba yung mga not politically correct na modules, yung mga igorot na ganyan, na grammatical errors.
Body shaming.
Tapos sabi niya, frantic search for the ugliest picture of Secretary Briones.
What do we get out of it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it doesn't move us forward.
Yeah. At saka also, we should also remember na learning, it doesn't start and end within the four walls of the classroom or within sa frame of time that you have your online classes. You know, on our own, we can do stuff para matuto tayo, to sharpen our minds. You know, marami namang available resources online.
Yeah.
Diba? Or if you have books na nabasa nyo na before, basahin nyo pa rin.
And
You know,
even
to
this
keep you sharp.
this COVID thing, I mean, if you just look at it, I mean, everything can be seen in the context of learning. So, this will actually improve our education system in a way.
And
if we
also
just know
improve
how to look at it.
governance
Yeah.
and how we address a crisis such as coronavirus disease.
Kasi it is only through crisis that we actually
Bottom
improve
line,
it. Yeah.
learning is a never-ending process.
Yeah. And that's it for today's Straight Talk. My name is Vernon Velasco.
I'm Tina Maralit. See you again next time.
Have a nice day.